All right, Ben, I want to talk to you about this Trumpian tactic of manufacturing a problem, blaming it on the Democrats, then acting like he's swooping in to save the day. We've seen it time and time again. He did it with Langford's border bill. He's doing it with the government shutdown. He clearly does it with immigration. And the onus is on us to call this out because people do fall for it. People will think this is President Biden's fault. So why does this work? How can we push back on this? Let's start there.
Well, people forgot their Schoolhouse Rocks jingle. I don't know. When I grew up, we learned civics. It was a big part of our education. We learned that there's a House of Representatives, there's a Senate. In order for a bill to become a law, it starts in committees, it goes to the votes in both chambers, the House and the Senate. They reconcile it, then it goes up to the president who has to sign a bill into law. And then it becomes the law of the land. And then there's federal law, and then there's state law. I think that most people have no understanding that there's even two chambers in Congress, that there's a House and that there's a Senate. I don't think people have any clue what a bill even is and what the role of the executive is under the Constitution. So I think foundationally, as Republicans largely, but there's a broader societal breakdown, I think, in civics education, but has attacked the education system. I think people don't know. So what it lends itself to is a lot of disinformation, which proliferates in these disinformation silos that you and we try to just educate people. This is what the process really is. And, sometimes you and I will be painted as, oh, you're such a leftist. And I'm like, okay, I'm just literally explaining to you the process of how a bill becomes a law.
No, but to build on what you were saying, if people don't understand the underlying civics at play, how the hell are they going to understand how Trump and Elon are manipulating these? Like when I used to debate people about the fake elector scheme, if people don't know what an elector is in the first place or how these pieces come together, how are they going to understand the fake elector scheme? If people don't know what's going on January 6th, like they don't know that inside the Capitol, the vice president is certifying the results, then they don't know the significance of that day or Donald Trump delaying the peaceful transfer of power on that day. So yeah, if people don't understand the underlying civics, then how are they going to understand Trump maneuvering around and breaking those same institutions? But it's not just Trump. Republicans like Speaker Johnson are playing along too, right?
Well, yeah, but then they play along and then they become the victim of their own play along if their name isn't Trump. And we see that with MAGA Mike Johnson. So he's the Speaker of the House, Republican, right? So he's the leader of the House of Representatives. And their main responsibility is not to necessarily hold these committee hearings where they play to the cameras and yell at the witnesses, although their investigatory functions are one of their roles, but it's spending. It literally is. The one thing that the House of Representatives is supposed to do is have the power of the purse and to basically lay out what the budget is and to pass a budget. Okay. MAGA Mike Johnson and the Republicans, unlike the Democrats who passed a budget, the Republicans refused to pass a budget. A budget sets out all of the spending across all of the government agencies, everything from defense spending to healthcare spending to education spending to disaster relief. You name it, if the government's involved in it, that has to be put forward in a budget. But because all this infighting within the Republican Party, they don't pass a budget. So what do they do instead? Every whatever it is, 6 months, 9 months, a year, based on all of these arbitrary deadlines they impose, they have to do what's called a continuing resolution, which literally just is like what's called a stopgap measure, or just something that's urgently needs to be done that says, okay, let's keep this funded for another 2 months or 3 months. Or they come up with the timeline. And so they wait until the last day. And you think about it like a student who doesn't study for the exam, who tries to pull an all-nighter, right? You think that maybe that's okay with the student, but when it comes to the House of Representatives, okay, and it's spending and people's lives are on the line, and these are adults, arguably, they would go and pass the budget. But they don't. So they do these continuing resolutions, but they take a little time to do. I mean, a few days before, if you're going to just literally pass what's called a clean continuing resolution, which just literally says we're going to keep on going, into the future. But the thing is, is that MAGA Mike Johnson has a lot of division within the Republican Party. And so right before Christmas, this should have been an easy thing to do. Again, obviously, we'd all want an actual budget, but in the absence of it, pass a CR, what's continuing resolution, stop a shutdown, and then kick it to March. But now Elon Musk and Donald Trump and others are basically saying, you know what? We screwed up Biden's transition. What if now, while Biden is trying to give Trump a good transition, we still screw up another version of the transition, right? Where we wouldn't give Biden a nice transition. Now we don't want Biden to give us a nice transition, so we can blame everything on him. So they've come up with this scheme, Trump and Musk and all these other Republicans. And you may be saying, why is Elon Musk involved in this at all? It's a great, valid question that we have a co-president right now. But their whole view is, nope, we are not passing a continuing resolution. We will force a government shutdown unless you abolish the debt ceiling right now. So one of the things that they claim they want to do is reduce the debt. The debt ceiling is a cap on the debt. So you may be saying, wait a minute, you want to eliminate the thing that caps the thing you want to say you want to eliminate? Isn't that the opposite? Of course it is. Why? Because they want to roll out their Project 2025 agenda, tax cuts to the billionaires, and they don't want to have to deal with a debt ceiling when Trump's in office. So Trump's like, you know what? I'm going to try to blame a government shutdown on Biden right now by making a requirement to fund the government that you get rid of the debt ceiling, even though 2 years ago, Trump and the MAGAs were basically saying the debt ceiling should not be raised. So they went from saying you can't increase it, Biden, to now abolish it so Trump doesn't even have to deal with the debt ceiling and has unlimited ability to accrue debt. And finally, the economists predicted when you warned about it, we warned about it, that Trump would add about anywhere from on the low end 5 trillion, but Trump's never on the low end, to the high end $15 trillion in debt. He previously added $8 trillion during Trump administration 1. The reality is that it's going to look more like, in my view, in my opinion, 20, 25 trillion, maybe even 30 trillion, because he's a disaster in everything he does. Why wouldn't he 5x or 10x what the most conservative estimates of what it's going to be? So that's the situation we're in, on the verge of a government shutdown manufactured by Trump and Elon Musk and others, saying that you have to abolish the debt ceiling right now unless in order to fund the government.
And it's just a sneak peek of what we're going to see over the next 2 years at least. I mean, as much as we hate Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, we have to be careful what we wish for, because Rand Paul did tweet early in the morning that maybe Elon Musk could be the next Speaker of the House. You don't have to be born in the you don't even have to be voted by the American people. So he's now one of those unelected bureaucrats that he's always railing against. Representative Jim McGovern tweeted out earlier, Johnson negotiated with Democrats to keep the government open, then went back on his word, abandoning help for farmers and disaster victims, because apparently out-of-touch billionaire Elon Musk now calls the shots. At least we know who's in charge. Grow a spine, Mr. Speaker. And this all just loops perfectly back around to Donald Trump being influenced by Elon Musk, by other billionaires, more so than anybody else. Elon Musk is the richest dude in the world. He bought his way into Trump's campaign. Now he is trying to paralyze the government for his own benefit. Like we said, stripping away disaster funds from people. It's going, federal workers will go unpaid. Trump's own inauguration could be impacted by this. That's my favorite part. But at this point, they just care about playing people, I guess. So how does Trump justify this to his base?
With this information, I mean, they believe anything that he says. I mean, so he writes a long rambling post. He uses an occasional big word like "ignore" in there, and they go, "Ooh, I think it must be right." It doesn't matter what he says. What he realizes is that 35% of the American population, no matter what his position is, will agree with whatever it is that he says. The other 25% of the population or so can be persuaded based on a broken down media structure, that corporate media isn't giving the facts. They do, they're going to try to both sides the issue. They're not going to say, look, this is obviously the fault right here of Elon Musk and MAGA Mike Johnson and Donald Trump for every aspect of this thing. You got to keep the government funded. And instead they'll turn it into kind of a horse race, which is, by the way, what you and I are hoping to change. And, you know, what I hope my interview with President Biden, which, by the way, on the MeidasTouch YouTube channel, what it shed light on is that his focus was it's what he said, whether you're from a blue state or a red state, my goal was to literally help you out with policies, whether it was healthcare, whether it was infrastructure. And a lot of, he would say in the interview with me, the red states, the people were suffering the most because of the red state policies were harming the people. And he said, my job was to help Americans. And I think it's our job in the media, or the new media right now, to make this about people over the kind of politics. The politics is what the horse race coverage of the media. We need to bring this back to, wait a minute. This is a billionaire screwing over the people as part of his kind of, you know, masochistic fantasy land of causing chaos and division, and then kind of feasting on that chaos and division. All of your viewers should remember, Adam, that Elon Musk said that Americans need to suffer economic hardship. He said that we should face economic hardship. You know, and Trump and all of his people talking about austerity measures like they have in Argentina, where the poverty rate is 53%. And they want to inflict that on us. Billionaires want to inflict hardship on the people. And then they say that's what's going to make things better. And we just have to say, no, that's crazy. And we're not okay with that. And this is a small example, but just think about what we talked about, Adam. Continuing resolution, stopgap measures, you know, the budget, the budgetary process. Who signs this into? This is complicated. I mean, it's not obvious stuff if you're not taught it. So if you're a bad faith actor, you can see that it's easy to be predatory in this environment, to just blame conflict on whoever. It's not like watching a basketball game and saying, you know, they're up or who's up. You know what it would be like? Here's a good example for your American audience. It would, without a scorecard at all, it would be like watching, for Americans, watching cricket without people keeping track of the score. And no one would know what the rules were if you'd ever watched cricket before. So just imagine if you saw this happening and you were able to convince the people, that's 5 points, this is 3 points. And someone who knew cricket went, that's not what cricket is. That's what's happening at the government level, is one of the best examples I could give you.
It's like there's no score, but Elon Musk gets to be the commentator and control the narrative entirely. And I love that. I love that quote from Biden about red states and blue states. It's funny because Trump's quote would be like, it doesn't matter if you're from a red or blue state. I will put myself and my billionaire buddies above you. And that's why, like you said, the onus is on us to always be pushing back, because right now, the pure volume that Elon Musk is able to put out, the pure volume of people like, I don't know, Tim Pool or whoever's funded by Russia at this very moment is absolutely absurd. And he can just post any tweet and get 4, 5 million views, 10 million views. So now we have to push back relentlessly. And that's why we're building this amazing community. Thanks for hopping on, Ben. Let's do this again.
It's good to be here, Adam.
Thank you, guys. See you.